Do you ever think about why some financial advisory firms thrive while others just exist? I think about that question all the time. In fact, I'm kind of obsessed with it. And you know what I keep coming back to? It's not the firms with the best investment performance or the most sophisticated financial planning software. It's the ones that figured out something most of our industry still struggles with: how to actually grow. And I don't mean grow by accident. I mean grow intentionally, systematically, repeatably. Here's an honest truth. I've spent over 2 decades, my entire career, watching brilliant advisors, people just like you who genuinely change their clients' lives, struggle to scale. You do great work. You have loyal clients, but you feel like you're hitting an invisible ceiling. Growth plateaus, it starts to feel really hard, and uncertainty about the future viability of your firm creeps in. Meanwhile, you see and hear and experience other firms that are breaking through to multiple billions. And when you dig into their stories and when we dig into them together, we realize that they're doing things fundamentally differently. And that fundamental difference is exactly what drew me in to EP Wealth. See, Brian Parker started this firm with his friend from a yogurt shop. Not exactly your typical Wall Street origin story. But here's what caught my attention. When EP Wealth hit $1 billion in assets, Brian did something radical. He fired himself, not from the company, from running it, because he realized the skills that got him there weren't the skills that would take them to the next level. That level of self-awareness, it's rare. And if you're feeling like your firm is outgrowing your current approach, you're going to relate to this story. Today, EP Wealth manages over $32 billion in assets for more than 20,000 clients. But what makes them a perfect growth leader's guest isn't just their scale, it's how they built it. They've cracked the code on something I know you struggle with: making marketing a true strategic function, not just an expense line. They've figured out how to do M&A as genuine partnerships, not acquisitions. And they've built systems that let them maintain that boutique feel even at a massive scale. Growth Leaders Podcast tells the story of advisory firm founders driving differentiated growth. And my conversation with Brian Parker, co-founder, Ryan Parker, CEO, and Jim Mocci, managing director, head of marketing, is really about something bigger than growth metrics. It's about having the humility to evolve when your business outgrows you. It's about building a marketing function that actually drives your business strategy instead of just supports it. And it's about creating partnerships where everyone wins, not just the acquirer. What you're about to hear isn't another case study about getting lucky or being in the right place at the right time. This is about the intentional choices that turn a modest financial planning practice into one of the industry's most respected growth stories. Choices you can make too. So let's dive in. EP Wealth founder Brian Parker didn't set out to be an entrepreneur. He was just a young advisor working with his old friend from the yogurt shop. He had seen the difficulties of poor financial decisions firsthand and wanted to help others avoid the same mistakes. It's this modest, thoughtful approach that drew people in and grew EP Wealth to a scale that Brian could never have imagined. But here's where Brian's story gets interesting and differentiated from others. When EP Wealth hit $1 billion in assets under management, he did something most founders don't bring themselves to do that early in their growth story. He fired himself from running the business because he realized his passion wasn't in managing a massive firm. It was in working with the clients he'd been trying to serve all along. Let's hear from Brian on the first chapter of EP Wealth.
I mean, it was a humble beginning as a business, right? Started when I was in my mid-20s with my best friend from home. We worked at a yogurt store together in high school and decided, well, that didn't go so well, so why don't we start another business to get today? From our perspective, it was, let's try to help families. My family made some poor financial decisions when I was a kid. And if we could start a business that helps others, we can then provide for our own families and build something pretty modest. I mean, the original spreadsheet was easy to contain, a few families locally to try to help them, make good financial decisions. Somehow along the way, our story resonated. It continued to grow. I've been blessed to have lots of other people join us as partners. Jim leading marketing, Ryan, our current CEO, blessed to have them, and kind of the story goes on from here.
I love that. I love that story. So you founded the firm sort of as a startup, and today, you're managing significant wealth for the clients that you serve. You serve currently over 20,000 clients, manage 32.6 billion in assets under management. So that is significant and remarkable growth from founding to today. Talk me through some of the key sort of inflection points on that growth journey. Like, what are some of the key moments that you remember as significant in the evolution of EP Wealth?
Yeah, sure. I mean, when you start out, two people in executive suite, with the secondhand desks and the, hey, let's just try to stay in business. But, really core to being client focused, being a fiduciary, doing right by families. I mean, that was something that we never pivoted from. And honestly, our core was helping, financial planning, trying to understand deeply what makes people successful, how can we help them have a better life? And it resonated. And sometimes, when your business is successful, that's not always such a great thing. If you're a financial planner that all of a sudden has 5 clients and then 10 and then 100 and then 200, and you're spending less time with families and more time as a small business owner, and realizing that actually wasn't our skill set. And it wasn't what we enjoyed. We enjoyed 80 or 90% with families, and all of a sudden it's 60 and 50 and 40 and 20. And so when we got to $1 billion, which just happens to be a round number, we quote unquote fired ourselves from running our own business. And why did we do that? Because we wanted to get back to clients, what we're good at. There's other people that could help us with running our business. And the reason that was maybe an important time is then we sat back and said, we're probably not the only people that feel this way. I bet there's other entrepreneurs that had a passion for helping, a passion for financial planning, and now they're spending most of their time on the things that really they didn't think about when they wanted to get in this business. I would say number 2 would probably be taking outside capital. Talking about bringing on investors and saying, well, what is our vision? Is it to stay local to LA? Is it to be in California? Or is it to be one of these national businesses? And we thought, well, we want to help more families. We want to be a national business. It made sense to have outside investors, as long as they're the right investors, as long as the management stayed with EP, as long as if the investors had a similar vision to us. We've been okay losing a little bit of control, firing ourselves or bringing out an outside investor, as long as the people we partner with feel that the client is what the center of the relationship. And we've had a good run with that so far.
Here's what I love about Brian. He demonstrates a vulnerability and level of self-awareness that is incredibly rare among founders. I've watched so many brilliant advisors struggle to hold on to leadership roles as their firms outgrow them, forcing themselves into positions that just don't play to their strengths. Brian had the wisdom to step back into what he loves and bring in people who could take EP Wealth where it needed to go. That takes real courage. Let's hear how Brian thought about turning over leadership of the firm.
From my perspective, it's easy to transition something to somebody that is more qualified to take it. I'm good at a few things. I mean, I'm excited. You asked a couple of things like, what are you excited about? Well, I'm excited for 2 weeks from now, we bring the entire firm together and explain the vision to the overall organization about the lives that we're going to affect, create an environment for growth that we all are embraced. But Ryan is somebody that is very skilled at both listening, leading, but also making decisions, right? I mean, I think that sometimes in leadership, it's easy to continue to get consensus, to spend more time, which I think is important. But eventually, you just have to say, you know what? I've heard all of the opportunities on both sides. We're going, and look, Ryan and I think he knows that as our founders, our job is to be supportive, to give our advice where asked and sometimes where maybe not asked, but also to get out of the way. You don't want any ambiguity around, well, what is Brian role within leadership? Is he actually behind this decision? We want it to be clear. I still spend time as an advisor. I still want to mentor. I still believe we're in the second inning of this amazing, fee only RIA space, and I think that we're going to be one of those winners. Um, Sometimes your best skill is maybe really being clear eyed about what you're good at, spending time at that, but also maybe even more so, what are you not good at? And if you're not good at something, find somebody like Ryan, who is a skilled operator, but not just an operator, but also a visionary for the business. Be supportive and get out of the way. And so that's really what we've tried to do here.
With Brian getting back to the client work he loved, the firm welcomed new leadership. Enter CEO Ryan Parker and CMO Jim Mocci. And here's a fun coincidence. Ryan and Brian share the same last name and a first name that rhymes, though they're quick to tell you there's absolutely no relation. They're just two guys with similar names and a shared vision for EP Wealth. I was curious what attracted these leaders to the firm and whether their first impressions held up.
Brian said this, and I will reiterate that it's a people business. It's a talent business, and by far the thing that attracted me the most were the people. Now, Brian and I are not related. But we did know each other while I was at Edelman, and he, of course, was at EP, and we got to know each other and really enjoyed the way he thought, just who he was, how he showed up. And long story short, as I got to know the firm, it was very, very clear that ethos went throughout the firm. First and foremost, that humility to serve others. Secondly, is that there's humbleness with a fire in the belly to do really, really well. And I think that's a rare combination. Oftentimes you find people who are, so aggressive in trying to grow a business that they forget why the business is growing. And person after person, regardless of who they were, how long they've been there, the role in the firm, you just thought people have been coming back to the only two things that really matter. Are we taking really good care of our clients? And is this a good place to work? And so, someone who's been, fortunate to have a lot of different roles in the industry over time, that was first and foremost what attracted me. And I can say now, 4 years later, that we probably have added 300 people, 400 people since I joined. And that continues to be what I experience as I go across the country and get a chance to interact with these amazing individuals who are very diverse in their background, diverse in their experience. But what brings us together is a true passion to help others and then contribute to something we can look back later on and say, hey, I was a part of that. It still felt like something that I could contribute, even though it was much larger than what I initially signed up for. I think that's a rare balance in life, much less in business.
Yeah, absolutely. There's a lot that I want to come back to on. I mean, I think a successful founder transition to more of a professionally managed firm is something that there's a lot to speak about. So I'll be curious to dive back into that. But Jim, I want to make sure that I hear from you. Same question as I asked Ryan, sort of perception, what drew you to the firm, and how is that perception aligned with your reality?
Yeah, my story and reasons for joining EP are really similar to what Ryan just said. The, the firm obviously is very client centric and putting clients first, and yet we also have this fire in the belly, right? I jokingly kind of said it's the nicest bunch of type A people I've ever worked with, right? Like everyone is really getting it done, but there is a compliment. That's 100% a compliment, because, you want to be on a great team of people who are going to do the right thing and make super smart decisions, but you can do that in a nice way. Right. And that was such a draw to me. Every single person I met was so nice and so good at their job. And it was a joy to interview with everybody. And then, of course, as a marketer, you want to work at a place that values marketing as part of their story and part of their growth, right? You don't want to be at a place that sees marketing as a cost center or a necessary evil. You want to be somewhere that really sees marketing as a recipe or part of the recipe for growth. And that was definitely here at EP. And my experience has been that and more. I always say this is my favorite job and favorite place I've worked. It is certainly delivered on my expectations.
Jim and Ryan talk about this fire in the belly that's present throughout the firm. I think this reveals something crucial about EP Wealth's approach to growth. They're not just willing to experiment, they're eager to try everything and double down on what works. From the beginning to now, their attitude has been test it, measure it, keep what drives results. Let's hear from the team on the growth strategies they've tried over the years. What drove growth? And when I say growth, I'm talking about new, net new assets, new clients coming in the door. What were some of the early drivers of growth? And then I'd love to hear from all of you. How has that changed and evolved over time?
Yeah, sure. I mean, I would say that we tried everything, right? I mean, I think we did the seminar at the library. We stepped it up to the hotel. We did hey, we can walk around flyers around the neighborhood. It's, hey, we're going to continue to hustle on the leads we have, do a great job for clients. Eventually we were able to do our first partnership, and we were added to some of the custodial referral programs. I think it's just the mindset of growth. I think, we knew that we wanted to grow, not for growth's sake, but for the opportunities and for scale. I mean, even to today, we talk about this real dichotomy around people like small. I think an EP teammate wants to be in a family type atmosphere. They want to make sure that their thoughts are heard. I think clients like that boutique feel. But large is helpful. Resources and being able to do more for clients as they continue to say, well, what else can you do? There's so much information coming at me, Brian. What can you do to make my life simpler? So can we use scale? Can we, the usual, can you be large and feel small, right? I mean, if that is kind of your North Star for growth, and the answer is we are going to try to get our story out there in the right way to the right people, whether that be through partnership, whether that be through our next client, whether that be through the next person that tries to join EP. It's a way of being. It's not necessarily the outcome. So if you believe that growth is important, you're going to partner with the right people. You're going to try to do more and improve each day, and always be humble. Maybe you can build a good business.
I've always viewed EP Wealth as a very marketing forward firm. And if I were to think back, you all can tell me, but I feel like you were one of the first firms that noticeably invested into digital marketing, in the sense that we had clients come to us and say, why is EP Wealth ranking at the top of Google all the time? And I was like, well, that's good digital marketing right there. So when did that become, I mean, you talk about seminar marketing, but like when did that sort of digital marketing prowess come to be?
Yeah, that predated me at EP, but I would say a lot of it came from being so client centric and delivering great service and showing up in not only our expertise in what we do or the articles we publish, but also reviews, right? If you're getting strong reviews from, clients who are raving fans, that obviously helps Google search results. So I think a lot of that was, truly in the vein of organic search as opposed to paid, although, we've evolved over time, of course. But I think that what you're referencing was probably just really delivering on the promises we made.
When did you start leveraging reviews? I think we're coming up on this September will be 3 years since the SEC advertising rule changed, and many firms have been quite slow to adopt the amazing opportunity that exists. So were you an early adopter to that as well?
Well, there were organic reviews, right? So people could just write the reviews on their own, right? So that helped with search. But we, in maybe the last 9 months, we have been much more active in working with vendors in our compliance department, of course, around how to both make it easy on clients to provide testimonials, but also on how we get those testimonials out to the world. So we began with pilots in specific regions, right, to really make sure we understood how it would work, the impact we could see, the work that goes into it. And we've seen great results. So we're, kind of copying and pasting and moving that approach out to other regions. And it's been, it obviously has a huge impact in Google when you've got great Google reviews and you're able to have client testimonials on the website and or advertising, right? It's a strong endorsement.
When you say good results, how do you categorize a good result? Like, what are you looking for to say, oh, that's a good result?
Combination of lead flow, or, well, first you start with visits to the site, and next you're looking at lead flow, so leads coming through a region's page on our site. So we're looking at not only the number of leads, but also the conversion rates, the likelihood to move through discovery or proposal. So we see that when when folks see endorsements from their peers, they're more likely to sort of go into that meeting, right? They're willing to have the meeting and hear you out when they know that you're coming with a high review, and or someone has had a similar experience, as opposed to someone, they may not have a review, or they may not know anything about you. There may be no external or third party validation.
Let's dive deeper into marketing, because it's a huge piece of what makes EP Wealth a true growth leader. I want to emphasize something here. EP Wealth adopted digital marketing strategies early and have continuously reinvested and adapted to the changing technology and landscape. This isn't some afterthought expense item. It's core business strategy. Let's hear from Ryan on their current growth approach, which is deeply integrated with their marketing efforts. So I think I'm hearing that the client first approach really bleeds into probably all aspects of your business, including your marketing strategy. Ryan, as you think about the growth today, and you're thinking about it's 2025, you're probably running an annual strategy, looking ahead to 2026, like what are today's drivers of growth? Where are your new assets and new clients coming from today?
What's interesting is that we have a saying that we reinvent ourselves every 18 months, except for the values upon which we do it. Right? And so this actually is a good example of that, which is, first and foremost, the main places that people come for clients are really the same they have been for a while. We have people who join us through our M&A partnerships, which we really think about organic and inorganic growth as two sides of the same coin. When you do a great job for clients, they're going to be attracted to come to you, whether they're coming because their advisor chooses to join you through an M&A partnership. That's one way of growth. Certainly, you do a great job for clients. They're going to rave to you, to their friends and family. Nowadays, it's actually, as Jim said, easier for them not just to tell the person next door or at the restaurant or at the country club. They can tell their entire community on Google that we've done a great job. So that idea of really generating advocates and fans to drive growth. Certainly, we've had a long-standing relationship, as Brian said, with the custodians. We feel like they are great partners, both in how we jointly serve clients, but also they've come to know us as the people to turn to when things get complex. And so we get clients from the custodians whenever it's really that combination of a tax problem, an estate problem, really sticky financial planning problem. Not that they're just looking for the best way to beat the market for the next 12 months. So that really powers sustainable growth through the custodian channel, not just one-off. And then you can see from the earlier answers, why we were so excited that Jim joined us over 3 years ago, because that intentional marketing strategy that isn't just digital. It's about amplifying all the different things that we do well, telling a better story, and then meeting clients or prospective clients where they are in their journey. When you put all those things together, that then becomes a portfolio, and we can think about how do we intentionally invest against that, put the right talent. And I would say a big part of how we actually get the client is also to make sure that the client realizes that the person that they're going to talk to is fully trained and equipped to bring all of those resources to bear. And so that consistency of quality of the client experience, we think, is a really important way that as we have grown, scale doesn't matter if you dilute what you're good at. And so by growing and maintaining the consistency, then we feel really confident that we can use these different channels to continue to move forward.
So when you're doing your annual planning, you sort of just mentioned a number of different drivers of growth for the business. Do you try to say, X percentage of new revenue in 2026 is going to come from M&A, is going to come from the custodial referral programs, is going to come from referrals, is going to come from marketing? Like, do you get that granular, or is it more so that you just want to make sure that you've got the full comprehensive approach and that everything is firing on all cylinders?
It's definitely intentional, and it's definitely granular. But I think what's important is it's a combination of the bottom-up view from our advisors and from our regional leaders. Our regional leaders are entrepreneurs. They think like we have for years. They want to continue to grow, but they want to do it the right way. So they're looking for pockets of opportunity locally to grow. Now, the good news is as they surface those, folks like Jim and other members of our team will partner with regional advisors to really say, okay, great, that's where you're going to grow. We're going to pour resources on it. But then there's the and, which is, yes, we set our overall targets for net new asset growth. We've been really fortunate to maintain double-digit net new asset growth ex market. And that's not just because we showed up and said, the beatings will continue until performance improves. It's really saying, how do we take these different opportunities? And when you roll them all up, some advisors are growing at 20, 30, 40%, some of them at 10, some of them at 5. But what we feel really good about is the confidence that for the last 8 years, we've seen that consistent organic growth. So we don't feel like we're making a bet and putting our finger in the air. It's based on our experience, based on what we're getting from the regions, and then based on what we're getting from the rest of the leadership team. We can then decide how we're going to invest and have a pretty high likelihood of getting that return. That's where the flywheel effect really starts to come into play. And as success begets success. It just allows us to lean in and invest more in the talent, in the tools, and then the technology that allows all of these things to really continue to improve even as we grow.
And Ryan, you mentioned regional leaders. I'm assuming, but you can correct me if I'm wrong, that those came in through acquisition. So you said entrepreneurs, so they had founded their own business and then they decided to join EP Wealth. And so now they're a regional leader at EP Wealth.
I agree with everything except one word that you said, which is acquisition. We've basically banned the word acquisition in our firm because I've never met anyone who wants to be acquired. These are folks who are entrepreneurs. They built a business. They got to a place that probably Brian and Derek were 13 years ago, 14 years ago, and they wanted to partner with someone. So partnership can be a word you kind of throw around lightly because it sounds really good. But the reality is those regional leaders are partnered with us because they know their business, they know their space, they know their market. But in partnering with us, we can really go in, help them do what they're already doing really, really well, and then open up other channels of growth that maybe they hadn't thought about, maybe they didn't have the resources for. And so other than that, though, yes, these are the people who chose us and we chose them, as we built out, towards a nationwide firm.
Some of my favorite moments on this podcast happens when guests challenge conventional thinking. Ryan's point about banning the word acquisition, it's so smart. Such a simple shift in language with profound implications. Of course, no one wants to be acquired, to be treated like just another asset pool. When EP Wealth partners with a firm, they're seeking entrepreneurs who bring real expertise to the table. In return, EP provides training and resources that smaller firms can't access on their own. This respect for their partners creates a bottom-up approach to growth and marketing, getting feedback from clients to advisors to leadership, rather than having leadership dictate strategy from above. When it came time to bring in outside capital, this same spirit of independence and experimentation drove their partnership strategy. So, Brian, maybe take me back a little bit to the first, your first strategic capital or outside capital investor. I think that was, I'm looking at my notes, I think that was in 2017, Wealth Partners Capital Group. Is that right?
That is right.
So, and then in 2020, Berkshire Partners made an additional investment. So talk to me just about what was the impetus behind that first investment? What were you as founders looking for? Why was it the right time? Was it so that you could go and have this partnership? I'm not going to use the word acquisition, this partnership approach, or was it different? And then that has been just an outcome of having these strategic partners.
Yeah. So, I think at first it was, let's do a good job. You do a good job, you grow, the firm grows, and then you start to attract other people. And as a person, Derek and myself, you're capital restrained, right? And so the question is, are we okay growing at a certain speed that we can control, yet the opportunity is larger to help more families and to grow a larger business? And so we never really thought of ourselves as somebody that's going to acquire others or build a national firm. It just kind of happens that way. People ask me quite often, did you always know you'd be an entrepreneur? And the answer is absolutely not, right? We woke up and we did a good job for clients, and maybe they told a friend. And you talk about marketing, which is, you've been doing that for a while. And I think our motto there was, let's just fail quickly. All right, let's be open-minded to a lot of different things. And if you find something that works, then you continue to pour effort there. And the things that don't work, you get away from quickly. And what we found is partnerships were working. We worried about this family that we called EP. It's easy when it's in one office, right? And then maybe it's two offices, and then it's two cities. And then you say, well, let's go to another state and see, can we still build something that feels like one community? We never wanted to be something where just an accumulation of lots of different businesses with different mindsets. So can we have a similar mindset? And the answer was yes. So then what? Well, we met Wealth Partners. They shared a vision. Their business was newer at the time. And they said, well, if you're in the partnership business, we can help you with not only capital, but resources, and which is on the front end, which is also on the making sure that we do the right thing as it relates to structure, and how do we, have a commonality of that. And it worked well. Berkshire was just an extension of that. So we never really had hey, let's have an outside partner. It's working well. What's the logical next step?
Okay. I think an important thing to add there, that Meg, there was this whole idea of a non-controlling outside investor. The whole thought, and this predates me, when Brian and Eric and Patrick brought on Wealth Partners, but it was, we want and need the capital to grow. We value the expertise because maybe we're still developing it, but we don't want to cede control to someone who doesn't share that deep-seated passion to do, and they don't share it. Maybe they're not as close to doing it every single day around the client. So that non-controlling, non-voting outside investment, that it continues to be really important to us today, not because we're control freaks, but because that allows us the best of both worlds. Great capital, good terms, good people, but then turn that into the things that we already know how to do really, really well. So I think that's an important aspect of that story over the last 8+ years now.
Sure.
I mean, I would add one thing there, which is also you don't want a misalignment of duration. If this is this is a business that's built for duration. We want the next 5, 10, 15, 20 years to help families. And so the concern always is, well, is somebody going to come in and have a 1 or a 2 year duration? If the timelines are misaligned, then you may be forced or pressured or influenced to do things that maybe aren't in the best interest of the long-term health of the business. Thankfully, that hasn't been the case for EB.
This non-controlling, non-voting investment approach reminds me of my conversation with Savant. If you haven't heard that episode, go back and listen. Firms are understandably cautious about bringing on outside investors. There's this real fear that taking money means giving up strategic freedom. But Savant and EP Wealth have shown that holding out for the right investors who truly see your vision can actually amplify your ability to achieve your goals. Of course, it's easier to convince investors to take a non-controlling, non-voting approach when your vision is as clearly defined as EP Wealth's. After a quick break, we'll hear more about how EP's investment in client research drives better marketing outcomes and their unique peer-to-peer approach to advisor training. Are you ready to have more confidence in how marketing is driving growth at your advisory firm? At FICOM, we believe the best marketing-enabled growth happens when you have the right strategic foundation, when your marketing strategy aligns your purpose with who you serve and the change you want to create. That's our strategic framework, and I love that you get to see it play out in the stories you hear from every Growth Leaders guest. We serve as your outsourced CMO and marketing department using our proven methodology to help you achieve greater and more sustainable growth. Visit ficompartners.com to learn more. All right, let's jump back into my conversation with EP Wealth. I wanted to understand how they approach M&A differently. If you're going to eliminate the idea of acquisition and find true partners, how do you identify the right people who actually match your firm's values? Ryan, you mentioned that one of the drivers of growth is being able to sort of expand the service set to clients and make sure that you're able to service their full and complete needs, being sort of a client first, relationship first, service first culture. So is your partnership strategy to go out and find other entrepreneurs who have built businesses that might be complementary to EP's current skill set, or has it really been sort of that hub and spoke model and more geographically based? or none of the above?
Well, I would say we take a little bit of both. First and foremost, it is a talent first, not geography first strategy, because the best advisors and their teams are all over the place. So that's why you look today, our map looks a little bit like a patchwork quilt. It's because we didn't just say, we're going to go call an X city until we find someone to say yes. It's let's talk about what's the best. So that talent first mentality versus geography. And then it is a true partnership. So let's use an example. Someone may have developed a great expertise in, let's say, private markets, alternative investments, and they can share that expertise with everyone at EP to bolster some of the work that we've been doing over the last several years. At the same time, they may not have as much strength in estate planning or in really deep, sophisticated financial planning. They were doing a good job planning, but maybe it was a 5-person team. Well, now they can draw on a 65-person team with all that breadth and depth. And so what we try to figure out is it's the import-export business. How do we look at what someone is already doing, export their best practices, make them available nationwide, and then what do they need to import from all these other resources? And I think that allows us to maintain that sense of having one company. But it's one company without a singular top-down mindset that says you have to do it this way in every circumstance. What we want them to do is do right by the client, draw on the resources, and then over time, the consistency is born out of success, not because you're being bopped over the head with a hammer to do it one way. And I think that's why I think our balancing act somewhat is harder to grow, but it's much more rewarding, and we think a lot more sustainable over the long term to focus on that balance of let's just do it right. Let's just get the best things into the hands of everyone across the company. Tends to work.
It's refreshing to see a firm treat M&A as a way to expand the capabilities of their entire advisor pool. They're not trying to dominate new market regions. They want to find advisors with unique strengths who can share their expertise across the platform. And this isn't just achieved through EP Wealth's network. It's formalized in their training and their development systems. Let's hear more from Ryan about EP's unique advisor learning development team. And Ryan, you mentioned that of the new partners that come in, or maybe actually, I'm not sure if it was specific to the new partners coming in, but just looking across EP Wealth and all of the advisors that you work alongside, and some are growing at 20, 30%, and some are growing at 5%. So what does the business do to invest in advisors? Jim mentioned an advisor learning and development team. So tell me a little bit about what that is and what the investment is that you make on behalf of your advisors.
Sure. Well, I think that for any craft, I think that, ours is a profession, right? It's learned. And oftentimes you need to start by having a mentor, and that mentor gives you the foundation. But then there's a time where you're ready to learn a new skill. And so we talk a lot about the skill-will gap of our advisors. And there are advisors who maybe they have started to learn how to grow, but they realize that they have a gap in either their confidence or their experience to really drive referrals in a repeatable way. Well, we created several years ago an advisor learning and development team, and really it was taking people who had walked the miles in the moccasins of advisors, who had led other types of offices. And it's just about being a programmatic and it being a curriculum. So an advisor can sign up for a program. We call it the wow factor, about how to generate a great client experience that leads to referrals. Or they might say, I want to be accredited. We have an internal accreditation program. Before you can go into the custodians and work with any financial consultants to receive opportunities, we want to make sure that you understand those systems, that you're not going to go in and disrupt that which has been really highly honed over the last 20 years. But people sign up for that. And there's people who've never, ever been inside a custodian branch before. And after 12 or 18 months, they're getting some of the largest opportunities in front of clients forever. So advisor learning development is really there to go out and find the best practices from our advisors, to put them together into programs that they can sign up or maybe be suggested to by their regional leadership, and then really track the progress that they make afterwards, so that it's not just hey, I went to a conference and learned something. It's every quarter we get all of our advisors together for 2 half days, and most of it is sharing the best practices about how really successful advisors have built their businesses applying the very things that are in those programs. So, don't listen to me. I'm just an overhead guy in an office. Like, listen to your peers who have been there, done that, and have really generated great, results. I think that's part of it. And then the question becomes, how do you make sure you can amplify that, through technology? And so we're thinking about a lot of ways of taking that advisor learning development, that sort of training program, and just bulking it up with all the things that are now available. Because at the end, it's just like serving clients. It needs to be personalized, but it needs to be personalized from some sort of a standard level of care, so that in the end, you're actually developing good habits and good skills to help people grow, not just a bunch of people out there doing their own thing.
Is some of that facilitated in-house, meaning do you have internal practice management leaders and coaches, and then you also augment with external resources, or what's the balance there?
It's mostly internal, and there's the actual advisor learning and development team, but then all of the regional leadership, they want to mentor and grow their team. They want to create the next successful generation, maybe the third generation in their region. So a lot of it is done in-house. But then, of course, the last time we figured out everything at EP was never. And so we can go out to different partners, and they may have great content. Some of the custodians have great content. We think about, for example, I won't name the name, but they really helped us with educating people about family governance strategies. Now, that's something that we have certain advisors around the country who are quite good at it. But to have an outside partner come in and train as many advisors as they did all at once is more than our internal team is going to be able to do at any one time. So mostly internal, but then supplement it with external where we can.
There are so many nuances to partner integration that get underestimated and overlooked, sometimes both. As a marketer myself, I know it can be challenging to begin working with a new partner with an entrepreneurial mindset and need to make changes that feel organic without disrupting the special relationships advisors have built with their clients. I asked Jim how his marketing team approaches bringing in new partners.
There are nuances that we have to be aware of. People are bringing in they've been very successful with their firm, right? And they have a deep belief in their approach. And so what we've always done is, 2 ears, one mouth for a reason kind of thing, right? Is we really listen and try to understand what has made them successful. What are the things we can lean into? What are the things we can help? And then if there's an amendment to the story or an edit to the story, Ryan mentioned the expansion of planning capabilities, things like that, right? That we'll help them with that narrative and thinking about the way that they're going to share or talk to their clients through the partnership process. We have, an advisor learning and development team. We have partnership integration team. We have folks that spend a lot of time with the new partner to help them kind of craft that message and understand EP's value prop and how to position that. And of course, we have marketing touches that go along with it. There's letters and there's content and there's a website and there's all the things that you would expect, right? That will build out to support that process. But I think we really try to lean into the sense that the new partner has about what's going to be best for their clients and how do we frame our message to support them. We really do try to use their expertise and their experience with their clients. And sometimes there's regional difference, sometimes it's been approach differences, but we really do try to understand them before we're sort of prescribing any sort of marketing touches.
And how much of the work that your team is doing today is sort of like, I'm trying to understand if there's significant regional differences that your team is managing to on a regular basis, because I know and understand that, first of all, the businesses that you're bringing on as new partners probably have different types of clients. Different geographies have, sometimes different psychographics. So, the work that you're sort of doing to make sure that marketing continues to be a significant driver of growth for EP Wealth, how much of that do you have to localize versus how much of that can be sort of driven at the corporate level?
Are you talking about in the context of partnership in particular or just broadly?
Broadly.
Yeah. We just actually completed the fielding of a large study of both prospects and clients that feeds into our thinking. but the ultimately what it has come down to is the regional differences are typically, I would say, it's less about the value prop of EP, the planning first. Your advisor is your quarterback, right? That message is true and really cuts through. I think that it's just the way a region might activate it, right? There might,
Okay.
I think Ryan mentioned that there are folks that are really comfortable with hosting a seminar or having a big event, and there are folks that want to lean into custodian programs, and there are folks that are really comfortable with marketing lead generation, and sometimes they're all in the same office too, right? There's different advisors that have a different approach. So it's really working through the regional leaders and understanding the offices and understanding the advisors, and then being able to match the right growth strategies with them. I think is a interesting decision that we made when I joined, which is very marketing oriented, right? But I think there's kind of two schools of thought in marketing, right? It's the brand, and then there's lead gen, and those two sometimes go together and sometimes don't. And EP's brand was strong, and advisors knew the value prop, or had, the way they talked to their clients. And so when I started, we really focused on lead gen, was really kind of my first orientation, was kind of showing the way that marketing can help drive the business and talk to those clients that need help and need a great advisor. But I think that over time, those, that evolves, right? Now as they both have said, we're growing. We've reinvented ourselves every 18 months. There's an evolution to the brand that needs to take place as well, in terms of our value prop and the way we talk about ourselves. And so it's, I think marketers can get kind of sort of stuck in one or the other, but you have to kind of make some bets, right? You have to deeply dive into one area, get your results, move to the next, move back. I think that on the growth side, marketers need to really not spread themselves too thin, and really need to make those strong bets.
So when you came in, you sort of made this intentional, I think what I'm hearing you say is you made an intentional decision to really focus on lead gen because the brand was so strong. You didn't need to invest, which many CMOs do, in sort of building that foundational brand work. But then instead you were like, no, marketing is going to be a quick driver for growth. This is where we're going to invest. We're going to make these bets. And over time, sort of you've been able to focus on the brand as the business evolves, but that early decision was a good decision.
Yeah, I think it was. I mean, I think being able to show results early is important on the marketing side, in particular when to be able to scale marketing, it's lead generation is often a function of spending money, right? So you need to be able to show results and be able, kind of prove it out.
I was so happy to hear about Jim's non-traditional approach when he first joined EP Wealth. Most marketers coming into new CMO type roles start with brand, but Jim recognized that EP already had a strong brand. He hypothesized that he didn't need to focus on brand first, but he needed to focus on quick growth. His approach was later validated by surveys of both advisors and clients. Good marketing is equal parts art and science. Too many wealth management firms see marketing as an expensive, elusive add-on. EP Wealth sees it as an opportunity, one that's informed by solid data and thoughtful conversations with the people who matter most, their clients and advisors. As Jim put it perfectly, there's a reason we have 2 ears and 1 mouth. Of course, even with the most careful data analysis, experiments can fail. The key is learning from those failures quickly and trying again. I love having these conversations and being able to ask the questions because I'm a business owner myself, and I know that for businesses that are driving the type of growth that your firm is driving, it's not easy, and it's not a linear path, and it's not always win-win-win, right? Someone said earlier, you're failing fast. I think that was you, Ryan, and sort of learning from it. So I'd love for each of you to sort of share just like what's What's something that you tried to implement at EP Wealth, or like the leadership team said, we're going to invest in this. This is what we believe, and it just didn't work. And what did you learn from that?
Who wants to fail first?
I'm happy to fail first, because that's actually one of the secrets to marketing, I think.
It's all one big experiment, right?
It's one big experiment, and the magic is the data, right? Having great data to understand what's working. Where are you generating the lead? What type of lead? How is it going through the funnel? Are we getting meetings? Is it falling off there? Is it falling off later? And then being able to say, how much money did we spend to generate that $1 million of net new assets, right? So the having good data, I think, is underpins sort of our, or at least mine on the marketing side, kind of eagerness to fail, right? You want to try lots of things, find out which things don't work as fast as you can, fail fast, move them off, find the things that win, and invest more. So, I think every lead gen marketer has lots of stories of failing, whether it's a lead source, a campaign, a lead magnet, you name it, right? So I think that it's sort of a table stakes in some ways, that we fail fast. And then the other thing I would say that is important is sometimes failing fast is also a great lesson, and you should try it again, right? You should learn what didn't work and go back and revisit it, right? On the marketing example, change your targeting, change the ad, change the download, change how fast you call somebody, whatever it is, right? So I think even the failures that we may be tempted to move away from, it's often an opportunity to revisit.
Jim, one more question. Is there anything that has surprised you recently in a good way that you were like, oh, wow. Like I knew that we had a hunch, but this is surprising.
Maybe on the testimonial front, the willingness and eagerness for clients to share a testimonial has surprised me. And it's, I suppose, not surprised because I didn't think they liked us, but surprised because I didn't know they would take the time, right? To sit down and write something really thoughtful. And it's great. And our advisors that have been in the pilot, they are, engaging with these people all the time, and they know so much about the families. And sometimes the testimonials will come back and they're too personal. It's too much about how involved they've been in their life and everything else, right? But I think that's been great, because for so long we were afraid of testimonials, right? You couldn't go there, you had to really avoid it, and then to see the adoration, and sometimes, or the gratitude coming from clients is really nice.
When Jim talked about failing as the secret to marketing, it was music to my ears. It reminded me of something I learned in my entrepreneurial master's program from Pascal Finette. He said FAIL really stands for first attempt in learning. Initial failure isn't total failure. It's an opportunity to go back and try again. When Ryan took over as CEO, he wanted to experiment with a flat internal structure to maintain a small community feeling EP Wealth had when he arrived. He quickly learned why that strategy was not going to work as they rapidly grew.
This is a talent business, and as I came aboard and we thought about how do we grow, I felt like as the leader of the business, I could stay really, really close across all the things that were happening, because we don't want bureaucracy, we don't want layers of fat and bloat, because that just slows you down and removes you from where you want to be. Well, at one point, I found that strategy had failed. I woke up and there were 37 direct reports to the CEO. And wow. That was then really doing a disservice.
You said no to the 38.
Yeah, I could be slow, Brian, but I thought that the experiment was, could we really run a very, very flat organization? And I think we found is that there's a limit. And so we found 3 leaders who stepped up and took on the day-to-day of working with our regional leadership. And it was important to say, we're not creating a layer of management. We're not creating bureaucracy that you have to fill out the TPS reports like the movie Office Space. It was, how can somebody really get deep and understand the unique critical needs of these different geographies? But then how can they bubble up the things that are common across the organization? And so we started by having 3 of those folks, and then we added several more, and then finally got to the point last year where this is some of the benefits of size, is that we were able to bring in, a chief operating officer and a chief people officer so that they're really now building those structures that actually can grow and scale, but it doesn't have to be corporate. Doesn't have to be clinical. It doesn't have to remove those of us who love being close to the business. And I think that willingness to try different ways to organize the company, to take talent who may have been doing one thing. And we had our chief administrative officer who was running technology and service and operations. He's now leading the middle of the country as what we call a divisional leader. So I think that ability to draw from great talent, try different things, but then always bring it back to first principles is one of the things that, once you get to a place where you've failed to serve the organization because you're spread too thin, having the humility to say, we got to change it up so we get back to what we are the highest and best use of our time would be the one I would share.
Ryan's approach as CEO really struck me. He wants to stay involved, but he also wants the experts on his team to inform strategy rather than the other way around. This dynamic is particularly rare in the relationships between CEOs and marketing teams. At EP Wealth, marketing is an honored and respected leadership function. It's fully embedded across the organization, drives growth, and informs business strategy. I was curious how Ryan and Jim see their working relationship. Ryan and Jim, how do you work together to drive growth for EP Wealth? What is that working relationship like?
Well, I'll start, and then Jim, you can correct me where I get it wrong. I mean, the first part is, you're right, it's a relationship, and Jim and I came together about 3 years ago, and that's when he made the choice to join us from his former team. And from the beginning, what you can tell the thoughtfulness, the intentionality, and the sort of scientist that is behind the speckles there with Jim. But there's also this incredibly passionate and talented people leader. And so a big part of when Jim came in was to say, tell us the team that you need to build around you to complement your strengths and accelerate this work. And so a big part, Jim said before, 2 ears, 1 mouth, was to listen to Jim. We hired Jim to tell us how to build a marketing machine, not to tell Jim how to do that. I think in the end, my job description is pretty simple: create an environment for others to be successful. And so, Jim and I get together, we talk through what's going on. He works on our, we call it wealth leadership team, which is led by our chief operating officer. But Jim and I are still getting together one-on-one frequently, both because we like to nerd out on the organic growth piece, but also it's really important that I can stay directly connected, not only with Jim, the person, but the leader, so that as he needs support across the organization, he knows that there's an understanding, from those of us that ultimately are accountable, for putting him in a place to win. So I don't know if that's how you experience it, Jim, but that's the way that I think my job is: to listen to you, ask you what you need, then try like heck to get it to you.
Yeah, no, that's absolutely the experience. So, Ryan understands the power of big marketing, right? And so he's both, kind of a advocate and cheerleader, but also will pressure test ideas. I often will ask, my word is a steer. I always ask him, I need a little steer here, right? Like, help me think through a problem. And he's always available for that very thing. But he is also very data oriented, which is helpful because in the end, I think marketing is most powerful when I can present the results or the decisions that we need to make in an Excel spreadsheet, right? When I can say, here's what the data says, here are the opportunities, and we can, Ryan's word is the nerdery. We can sort of geek out on the data and look at what the opportunities are and how we might best deploy them for EP.
But one thing just to add to that, Jim, I think that what you're really good at is bringing that data, that Excel spreadsheet, back to your team that has to write the creative, that has to have the campaign, that actually connects with people as emotionally as it does rationally. I think your ability to complete that circuit is part of what makes our work together really meaningful. So yes, there's a business to be run. There are smart investment decisions to be made. But if we can't take that back and have people say, wow, they really get me, and they can connect with me at a moment that really matters in my life, then you break down with the true power of this sort of big marketing that Jim talked about. I think that's part of, I think the fun that we get to have in having to work together.
And is there sort of like an order or sequencing that happens in the business whereby, Ryan, you're setting the business strategy for the upcoming year or 3 years or however long of a time horizon you put on your strategy, and you're you're doing that, and then you're coming to Jim and saying, okay, here's the business strategy, now craft the marketing strategy, or is it more or is there more synergy to that process?
I mean, my take is you always have to meet somewhere in the middle. And the middle might not be where you thought it was when you started. And so we have longer term goals, but those goals are the what and the when. It's Jim and his team, but also not just the marketing team, but all the other folks we talked about here that help to lead growth. They know how to do it. They know where to do it. They know with whom to do it. So you got to be able to figure out that. And then to the point that Jim was talking about is that there are ways to then evaluate whether it's working and you want to double down or not. So we have a 5-year plan. We've got an annual budget, and those are all important governance things. When it comes down to it, there's an ongoing real time and monthly cadence that just says, hey, this is working, this is not working. And do we need to make some adjustments here? Or, do we just double down because, we actually think that the longer term is there? And I think that's part of a business that's always thinking about what is the long-term impact on clients and on the business, not just, you got to make your quarter in net new assets, Jim, or else. It's like, no, of course you got to perform over time, but we want that over time to be sustainable and not just, driving, left, right, left, right, left, right. I think that's a great way to build a business plan.
So my final question for each of you, I'll start with you, Jim, and then Ryan, and then Brian. But as you look toward the future, what are you most excited about for the future growth at EP? So what do you see as the next frontier of growth for EP Wealth? Jim, we'll start with you.
I'm super excited about the next leg of growth and just the future for the company and my friends and colleagues. The model is so good. The culture is so good. I think that we're in a place where in a lot of ways we can, do more of what we're already doing. And so for me, when I think about the future of EP, I'm not thinking about it as we're going to look like a different company. I think more that it's about how many families can we help, right? How many people can we reach out to? And that's what I think I'm most excited about.
Anything specific from a marketing perspective that's available to you now that maybe wasn't available to you in the past that you're excited to invest more into on a go-forward basis?
I think the obvious is probably AI,
AI.
Right? Like we're spending a lot of time around AI and figuring out the best way to incorporate AI, whether it's helping with targeting or ads or, generating content, creating, whether it's something even as simple as how do PowerPoints not take 3 hours? There's lots of places where we can add efficiency and I hope we can get to a place where, we're still going to have a strong marketing team full of great people, but maybe by today's standard, we can do the work of 1.5 people, right? Or 2 people in the future. And I think that's a big piece of the new technology or something new that's really going to impact marketing.
Sure. Thank you. Ryan, as you look ahead, what are you most excited about? What's next for EP Wealth?
Well, I mean, some of this is the ties that bind. And so the most exciting thing is to do better for the people we already know and then get to know more people we can do better for. And so, we're building a business in perpetuity. So part of it gets me excited is we're strengthening the foundation today, what we already have, right? Because we want to build from a position of strength. And then we're looking at where can we invest next? And some of that's in talent. Some of that's in tools. Jim mentioned a little bit of the technology. But I think what gets me the most excited is taking on the challenge I think Brian described a little bit before, which is when we're a $100 billion firm and we're serving 60, 80, 100,000 clients. First and foremost, we're still going to be a small firm in the grand scheme of wealth management. How do we continue to make it feel small, to reinforce what it means to be served by a boutique that truly understands you as an individual? But then when you reach behind you, you've got the firepower of thousands of people who are the best at what they do, that has been packaged in such a way that you have conviction that when you apply it to that specific client's needs or that family's circumstances, you're not only going to meet their needs, you're going to just surprise them by how someone who might feel like they're part of a bigger company is just there to take care of the next person they talk to. And that challenge gets me energized, gets me excited, then find more people who want to take that up together and move forward.
Yeah, amazing. Brian, I'd love for you to answer the question. I'd also love for you just to reflect on, Ryan just mentioned EP Wealth being a $100 billion firm. What does that feel like for you as the founder of this business?
Yeah, sure. First of all, I think what I'm excited about is that our business is led by people like Ryan and Jim, right? That I have the privilege of seeing the great things that they're building and supporting them. Look, I'm excited about how we can, the business aside, I'm excited about what we can do for that next client, right? Whether it's the 20,000th client or the 40,000th client, what can we do to help their family more, right? You started out with investments early days, asset allocation, and then financial planning. And let me help you with tax and estate and charitable planning. Well, maybe we should be talking about your physical, mental health and how they're related to your financial plan and how everything is connected. Return on life versus return on portfolio, and some type of dashboard that really says, well, how are we progressing in our relationship to make sure that we meet the goals of your specific family? Where there's going to be a lot of families we help, but as long as our North Star is how do we help the family in front of us? How do we pour the resources, time, and expertise of everybody at EP to make that better every day? That's what gets me, as you can tell, I'm still really excited for the business that we are today. We're accidental entrepreneurs, right? We made a couple of decisions early days to try to help families. We continue to try to partner with others that want to help families. We want to be aggressive because we want to be one of the winners, not just for winning's sake, because we think we actually better lives. And so if we can better lives and create an environment where other people can say, I started EP here and look at my progression for my own family, the success has done for me personally. Thank you for that environment. All of the other people around me is what gets me excited today. When I first started, I wanted to be able to pay for the college for my kids, and I'm so blessed to be able to do that. Now I hope I can help others do the same thing. That's really what gets me excited.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. Thank you, Brian. Thank you, Ryan. Thank you, Jim, for sharing your story. I've long admired the firm from an outside perspective. So to have this insight and the direct sort of thoughts and intellectual capital and leadership from each of you has been a real gift. So thank you very much. Throughout my conversation with EP Wealth, one thing kept coming back to me. They are doing marketing right when so many others still do it wrong. Marketing is not an afterthought at EP, it's front and center. Ryan gives Jim a real seat at the strategy table, and they're genuine thought partners. They understand that marketing isn't some expensive mystery. It can be data-driven and attuned to their client base. And they're not afraid of risk or experimentation. When something fails, they learn, shift strategy, and try again. It seems so simple, yet it's a clear differentiator that sets EP Wealth apart in our industry. I also want to highlight the respect and care that Brian, Ryan, and Jim bring to their M&A partnerships. Their emphasis on unique talent, bottom-up thinking, and deep listening means that every step toward growth only strengthens the organization. I'm going to keep an eye on EP Wealth, and I can't wait to see what's next for their firm. I'd love to hear what resonated with you from today's podcast. I hope you'll find me on LinkedIn and share your takeaways. At FICOM Partners, we're on a mission to help advisory firms achieve the growth you are capable of. We serve as your outsourced CMO and marketing department, driving marketing-enabled organic growth through strategy, strategic deliverables, and advisor coaching. For more valuable growth resources, visit ficompartners.com/insights. Please subscribe to the podcast and subscribe on YouTube so you can continue learning from inspiring growth journeys. I'd like to thank today's guests, our producers at Podpony, production assistant Molly Spina, and my amazing, remarkable executive assistant, Kristen George. This is Meg Carpenter, CEO and co-founder of FICOM Partners and your host of Growth Leaders of Wealth Management.